with the help of a neighbor friend, they took the bricks out of the hearth and put the plates in the hearth of the fireplace and covered the bricks. Within hours after that event, mob did come to the house trying to obtain the plates, and the people in the home, the man in the home, rushed out of the house yelling and screaming at the mob, which took the mob by surprise, scaring them, and they fled into the woods and dispersed and went to their homes.
Shortly afterwards, a couple of men came to the house to talk with Joseph and to try and get him to show them the plates. Joseph actually took them into the west room of the house where the plates were buried under the hearth and talked with them, and of course wouldn't give them any information that they wanted. One of the men was, the records tell us he was a great rodsman, meaning he had some rods, some sticks that he could use, and through them locate buried treasure. And he actually, according to the records, pulled out his rods when he wasn't getting anywhere with Joseph, pulled out his rods, and they went right to the hearth. And he calls out something to the tune of, "Hey, I found them." And the record doesn't say what happened next, but obviously Joseph was happy to have those guys gone. But with the hiding place discovered under the hearth, he had to move them somewhere else. And so he removes them from there, digs them up, and takes them over across the street to his father's cooper's shop, where his father made barrels. And initially, he apparently tore up the floor. There's a wooden floor. He tore up the floor, dug a hole, and deposited the box with the plates and the breastplate inside the box down into the hole, and then patched everything up again. Shortly afterwards, prompted by the Spirit, of course, he goes there, digs them up again, leaves the box in the hole, and takes the plates and the breastplate up into the loft of the cooper's shop, right above his head there, and has them wrapped up in some clothing and hides them in a large quantity of flax that was there. That night, the mob comes and does find the box buried under the floor, and they smash the box, but for whatever reason aren't able to locate the plates that really were just a few feet above their head in the loft.
The story tells of how Joseph was given the charge by the angel to do everything he could to protect those plates. And if he did, if he's obedient to the Lord, he would have help to protect them, not only from people around him, but also from angels by the Lord himself.
Joseph and Emma faced persecution while living here in his parents' home. Joseph was unable to translate any portion of the ancient record in Palmyra. Martin Harris, a local farmer and friend of the Smiths, advised Joseph to leave the area. He gave him the necessary funds to make the journey to Harmony, Pennsylvania. Joseph and Emma moved to Harmony, where the translation of the ancient record began. This would not be the last time that Martin assisted Joseph in furthering the work of God.
Martin Harris was quite different from the other people that came in contact with the prophet early on. He was considerably older. Many of the people that were drawn to Joseph Smith were somewhat in and around his same age. But Martin Harris was 22 years older, old enough to have been Joseph's father. And he, in many ways, he was kind of a security figure, someone that was there for the prophet in his most urgent needs. Martin received some impressions and some witnesses such that he felt compelled to be Joseph's friend and to support him.
Martin Harris had questions about the translation of the Book of Mormon, and in early 1828, he went to Harmony, Pennsylvania, where Joseph and Emma were living, and he obtained from Joseph Smith a transcription of some of the characters from the Book of Mormon plates. He then took those characters via Albany to New York City, and he showed them to at least 3 notable linguists. One of those was Samuel Latham Mitchell, who was vice president of the short-lived Rutgers Medical College. He then went to Charles Anthon of Columbia College. Anthon was known as the best classicist in America at that time. And according to Martin, he then gave him a certificate that talked about the authenticity of the transcription and the characters. After he gave him this certificate, Anthon asked Martin Harris, where did the plates come from? And when Martin Harris said that they were obtained by direction from an angel, Anthon then asked Martin Harris to give the certificate back.
He took it and tore it to pieces, saying there's no such thing now as ministering of angels, and that if I would bring the plates to him, he would translate them. I informed him that part of the plates were sealed, and that I was forbidden to bring them. He replied, I cannot read a sealed book.
The ancient prophet Isaiah had testified that a sealed book would be delivered to a learned man who would say that he could not deal with it because it was sealed. Then the person who was unlearned, Joseph Smith, was required to translate the Book of Mormon not by worldly means, but through the inspiration that God provided, showing that the Lord would work through humble individuals in order to bring about his work in these latter days.
Martin Harris returned from New York with a renewed commitment to seeing the project through. About the middle of April, he arrives, and Joseph, together with Martin, begin a sustained effort at translating the plates. Over the next 2 months, they translate approximately 116 pages. One can only imagine the growing excitement that Martin felt as he worked with the prophet Joseph Smith as his scribe day after day, and he saw the actual translation of the Book of Mormon coming forth. One can understand why Martin would have been excited to approach the prophet about the possibility of taking this impressive product back home to Palmyra, to share with his wife, to share with those closest to him. The prophet approached the Lord, and the Lord indicated that this would not be appropriate. He conveyed that to Martin. Martin was understandably disappointed, waited a little bit longer and tried again. Finally, he pestered the prophet. At that point, the Lord indicated that he would be able to take the manuscript, but only if he showed it to a select few, those in his immediate family circle.
On June 15th, 1828, the day after Martin Harris left with the 116 pages, Emma gave birth to a baby boy, Joseph and Emma's first child, whom they named Alvin, after Joseph's brother Alvin, who had died in 1823. The birth was difficult. The delivery was long and hard. And from what we understand, the infant may even have been deformed. This little baby died after just a few hours, and the young couple were devastated. Joseph nursed his ailing wife. She was very sick after this delivery for 2 weeks. And at the same time, all the time in his mind, he's thinking about Martin Harris. Where is Martin with the manuscript pages? He doesn't express this to Emma because he's so concerned about her health. But finally, after a couple of weeks, she herself raises the issue. Finally, Emma persuades Joseph that he needs to go to Palmyra, find Martin Harris, and find out what has happened to these critical 116 pages.
So Joseph took stagecoach to Palmyra. In those days, it was a several-day trip. His mother recalls that he virtually felt too burdened to eat or sleep during that several-day trip to Palmyra. According to her, there was only one other stranger in the stage, and this stranger became so concerned over Joseph's condition that as they approached the stop for Palmyra, the stranger indicated that he would accompany Joseph to his home. They arrived early in the morning, exhausted and emotionally drained.
At 8 o'clock, we set the victuals on the table, as we were expecting him every moment. We waited till 9, and he came not. Till 10, and he was not there. Till 11, still he did not make his appearance. But at 12:30 we saw him walking with a slow and measured tread toward the house, his eyes fixed thoughtfully upon the ground. On coming to the gate, he stopped instead of passing through.